All right. Let's, hey guys, can you see me? Type it in the chat if you can see me. I'm having trouble here figuring out where my chat is actually. Hold on a second. I may have to log out and log back in. Let me see what I can do here. Content. And I'm not sure what happened. I can't see the chat, so I got to figure out how to get to the chat. Okay. Can you guys see this? For some reason, I can't see the chat feature, guys. Anybody got an idea what's up with that? Oh, there it is. Never mind. Hold on. I found you. Fortunately, I think I need to close this so that the chat moves under. There we are. Hey, guys. All right. Hello, everybody. Hey, Ron. Hey, Hannah. Happy thoughts. Long time no see, huh? All right. Things are better now. All right. Well, this is one of my Wednesday night, or as I like, I think I have it termed here, the Hump Day Hypnosis AMA, the Hypnotic Hump Day AMA. So you got me for a little bit of time. I was feeling kind of lonely and wanting to reach out. Questions? Talk to me. What do you guys want to talk about today? Godforce says much love back at the big G over there. All right. Hey, Cynthia. How y'all doing? Seems like I just talked to you guys yesterday, huh? I must not be able to get enough. Don't stop till you get enough. Keep on. Nolan wants to know how to influence the subconscious mind. Well, here's an interesting question, Nolan. And Nolan's been bebopping around Planet David for a long time. Is there anything we do that doesn't influence the subconscious mind? You think about it. Think about everything we do on this channel. Everything we do is about talking to the subconscious mind. Deepak, I'd love to teach you amnesia, but I forgot how. Change that. Nolan says, David, in one of your courses, you talk about 2 ways to influence the subconscious mind, effort and repetition. Actually, effort and repetition are the same thing. What I said was emotion and effort, which is analogous to repetition. The neurology is designed to do well what it does often. So the more you engage in processes, the more rapidly your neurology streamlines its ability to do that. It's a common principle taught in most forms of personal training, SAID, specific adaptation to imposed demand, right? And it's a way to move through the 4 stages of learning, and make things unconsciously competent. Okay. Hold on a second. The type on the chat is really, really small. I'm not sure if I can make that bigger or not. Oh, wait, that was better. One second. A little bit of a delayed reaction there. Okay. Well, I can't promise to answer every question, but here's, as is my standard operating procedure. If I don't see your question, or you just keep asking it in the chat. If after I log off, it's still not answered, all I want you to do is type your question in the comment section below this video, and I will go back and I will type in the answers to your questions. Okay. I won't, by the way, just in case I haven't said it, I really, really, really love and appreciate all of you. What we do here at Planet David is really special. It really does change people's lives. And I want to thank you so much for really appreciating what we do, but even more so, taking the materials out into the world and actually using them, testing them, playing with them, and using them to make your life better. Nothing thrills me more than to hear people write back and tell me how they used the technique and how it's made a profound change in them. So thank you for finding the faith and the willingness to take what we teach you and go out and make your life your own. And I want you to know that you keep coming back. You don't have to come back, right? And I want you to know how much I love and appreciate each and every one of you for investing your time and energy with us. And I hope that you'll continue to support us. I hope you'll come out to more and more live events where we can actually hug and hang out and do shots or whatever it is we do, right? If you're substance abuse issues, we won't do shots. We'll do something else. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. I know a lot of people kind of get that unconsciously. There's that unconscious influence you're asking about, Noah. But sometimes it just needs to be said very, very directly. And I just wanted you to know how much I appreciate all of you. Anyway, so let me see here. Please teach me the name amnesia. Okay, I can't really teach that over the internet. I'll see if I can find some videos. One of the ways that you can do it is by eliciting places in the mind where they naturally forget things and moving the thing you want them to forget, shrinking it down and moving it into that spot where they forget stuff and they can no longer see it. And you'll be able to suggest for it. The other way to do it is the classical way, which is you do a 4 magic bullets induction, you deepen, you test for phenomena, analgesia, arm catalepsy, good smells, bad smells, and then you ask them to start losing their name, right? Jerry Kine had a really cool video way back in the day that kind of teaches people how to prompt people to lose their names. It's not as easy a phenomenon to get. But you have to layer through it because most people, there will be a small percentage, maybe 3 out of 10, that you can just get them to lose their name instantly, because that's about the ratio of what we call natural somnambulists, which is really a misnomer. Everybody can become somnambulistic. Everybody is somnambulistic. It's just how readily they go there, right? But usually you have to build up, you have to layer phenomena. So you may need to start with analgesia, arm catalepsy, hand stick, good smell, bad smell, temperature, and then have them lose their names. Okay. Cynthia says, I am good. We're just happy to see you as well. Oswin the Piper, do you know anything about music on the subconscious? Can you ask me a more specific question? Roland Escamarosa, the sphere of influence, how to project good feelings from across the room like your friend in Vegas story. Okay. To do that really, really well, it helps to have the state control training that we do in Killer Influence and CPI. Have you seen those? Do you have access to those? If not, check out the emotional superpowers video. here on YouTube. It's a very popular video. It's one of the most recent ones. That'll give you all the foundations. And I think I even talk about sphere of influence in that video. If not, it will give you the principles behind it. Let's see here. Okay, so Alana's asking about tequila. She must have heard my shots comment. By the way, just so you know, I am simulcasting from Zoom, so there is a slight delay between when I read your question, I answer it, and it shows up in your video feed. But if you ask something in the chat and I type it in the chat, that's in real time. So it may seem like I'm doing two things at once or not answering you. But if I miss your question, because stuff's flying by really quick for me here, just keep asking the question. And if I still miss it by the time we log off, then just type it in the chat and I promise you I will go back and answer it. Let's see here. Ron says, yes, David's teachings have changed and is continuing to change my life, but I still want to learn more. That's kind of how it works. You know, it's like you crest that hill, and as soon as you hit the peak of that hill, you see the next hill on the horizon. It's like for every level of achievement you attain, it's like you want more, right? And I'm that way too. That's why like Seth, who's been on, with us forever, he keeps coming back because I'm never happy. I'm never satisfied. I mean, I achieve a certain level, I solve a certain problem, and then I see what's beyond it, and I want to go even further. That's why I'm never going to stop. For as long as I've got a heartbeat and breath, I'm going to continue to research and explore and test. And if I find something that fixes a problem for me at the level that I want, I'm going to share it if people want to learn it, right? Winrich von Niprod, I hope I pronounced that right. How do I use energetic techniques to change the taste of alcohol? Ooh, great question. I'll tell you who you should research on that. There's a guy by the name of Jerry Alan Johnson. He's a Taoist sorcery well, he's a Taoist wizard, basically. Taoist wizard / shaman. And he actually has an intermediate level course from his medical Qigong series. And part of the tests that the medical Qigong practitioners had to go through is they had to be able to physically use their energy to remove the alcohol content from wine. So he's a good source for, there's a bit of training that goes with that. Now, the other way to change the taste of alcohol is hypnotically. You can, using hypnosis, you can make an apple taste like an onion or an onion taste like an apple, right? So you can change, using regular classical hypnosis, you can change the taste of just about anything. But if you're looking for an energetic way to do it, short of changing water into wine like Jesus did, which I don't think he ever taught that secret. Image cycling could probably do it. I've never tested that. But Jerry Alan Johnson actually has a methodology for learning how to do that. Hypnotically speaking, you can hypnotize anybody and you can get them drunk on water, right? So a lot of things you can do if you're a good hypnotist, right? Let's see here. I saw a question about who is Jeff Ross? I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't want to make a guess and be wrong. So can you explain a little bit about who he is and what he does and why he seems legit to you? Oswin says, can you explain how to completely reprogram your mind and forget things? Yes, I can. The problem is, and it's not a problem per se, it's important to understand that one of the worst approaches to getting over stuff is to erase it. Why is that? It's because many times there are other things connected to those memories that we may lose if we nuke the memory. Now back in the day, back in the hypnosis, early days of hypnosis, that was actually some people's way of dealing with shit. They would actually go in, create amnesia for a traumatic event, and they'd be done, right? Best thing to do is to delete the emotional charge surrounding an event, and then reframe it so that when they look back on it, the memory is completely flat. There's no emotion to it. There's no affect to it at all. And then amnesia or forgetting it or erasing it is no longer relevant. You can also take the spatial location of your proprioceptive nervous system, about where it's coded that experience, move it into the posterior hemisphere of the body, and it'll lose its charge. So there's lots of ways to do those things. Classical hypnosis, you would induce, you would deepen, you would stack phenomena, like I did with what I was talking about with people who want to do amnesia, right? And then you would just suggest that you put it in a container and you put it somewhere where it can't be accessed anymore. And that will help you to dissolve it and delete it, right? There's lots of different ways that you can achieve a similar thing. I just don't recommend it because you don't know what's attached to those memories. And if you nuke a particular memory, you may nuke something good that came about as a result of it and lose that. So I'm not a big fan of just nuking memories. Reframing them, reprocessing them, restructuring them, recoding them. Big fan of that, right? Not a big fan of nuking memories, right? Let's see here. So Nolan's asking, do binaural beats facilitate access to the subconscious mind during trance? Yes. They will enhance or accelerate any process that you're using to access the subconscious mind. Osmond says, I'm sorry, man, got to run quick. I'll watch back through. Okay, we'll come back when you can, Osmond. Bernardini says, how do you naturally go into a state of confidence in being seductive without putting myself into trance? You can't become confident without going into trance, and I'll tell you why. All emotional states are trance states, period. Human beings are trance machines. Our experience of life is just transitioning from one trance to another. So when we talk about being confident, the fastest way to pop into a state of confidence is to change your posture, change your breathing. Okay, that's it. If you assume a confident posture, within 2 minutes, sometimes faster, you will start to dissolve whatever fears or ambitions or anxieties that you have. You will move and act more congruently confident than ever before. Okay. Confidence for me is kind of it's a smoke and mirrors act. The self-help community sells confidence a lot. Functionally, what people are saying when they say, I want to have more confidence, what they're functionally saying is, I want to be less afraid. I want to stop being afraid. And so if you just target the things that make you afraid and nuke those so that they no longer have that supercharge connected to them, and then you apply the physiology drills that I'm talking about, you're going to find yourself being more confident as a natural byproduct of the alleviation of fear. Okay. Because asking for more, I know some of the most confident motherfuckers in the world, you ask them what they need more of, they'll say confidence. It's a treadmill. It's a hamster wheel. What you want is less fear and more curiosity, more playfulness. Okay. Hope that helps. Deborah Wilson, don't know if this relates, but why do conspiracy theories work so well? They work so well because they feed into that there's an enemy out there that is responsible for all the things that are fucked up in our life, regardless of what level you're working at. There's a part of us that wants to shirk responsibility, and I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody. This is a natural human phenomenon. There's a part of us that wants to believe somebody's pushing the button. There's an enemy out there that we can't see that's orchestrating things that don't have our best interests at heart. Now, who am I to say there isn't, right? But one of the reasons that this takes hold in us so strongly is because we are animals who learn to think and speak and work in a community where sometimes people were real protectors, sometimes people were predators in sheep's clothing, right? And we know this, right? And a lot of these ideas are deliberately deliberately injected into the psyche of the population because it makes you more manipulatable. The moment, and probably the last 2 or 3 years, the last 6 years, really, you've seen an escalation in the venom and the mudslinging and the fear mongering between one side of the political arena and the left, right? And all of it has been an attempt to hijack your amygdala, to get you to overstimulate that amygdala, the part of you that controls fear, shuts off your ability to think rationally, and so you become hypersuggestible in a negative way, right? We are, as a race, as a species, we are far more susceptible to negative thought influences than we are positive influences. It's because it gets the neurology to do something. When you sense a threat, when you sense danger, your neurology goes on alert and you take an action. Whereas when people are happy, joyful, comfortable, they tend to bask in that feeling and they tend to slow down, if not completely stop, so that they can enjoy those sensations. So the universe in her infinite wisdom built into us this mechanism that makes the bad things way worse than they are. And the good things can be as good as they should be, or as good as they appear to be, or sometimes a little less, right? I'm extrapolating on that piece, but I know for a fact that our neurology weights the bad shit to be worse in our experience or in our perception than it actually is. Okay. Let's see. So I hope that that took us in a different question. Zero says, hello everyone, how's everyone tonight? So Nolan's asking, can lighting a candle before setting an intent and releasing it accelerate the process of manifesting? Really depends on your belief system. You know, are you doing a ritual? Is it just a habit that you've created? A lot of it, it can work. Have I tested it? No, I don't do candle rituals like that anymore. I don't need to. And that's kind of a cool thing, right? Sushi Desperado says, let's say there's another person doing NLP on someone to turn them against you and be favorable to them. How do you counter it? Rapport, state control, reframing. Rapport, state control, reframing, criteria and values. Those are going to be your big threes, right? The other piece is going to be leading the person that is the target of that influence to discover the bad things about the person who's speaking to them. Okay, so you have to engineer that a little bit, but the real secret is going to be state control, rapport, and what was the last thing I said? Reframing. So look into sleight of mouth patterns or conversational belief change as a way to counteract some of that. Hannah says, brilliant and reasonable insights into conspiracy theories. Well, I channel it. It comes through me, and right. Let their guard down around positivity. Thank you for that answer. You're welcome. KW asks, when a person can't remember or imagine feelings from the past, for instance, safely, how do we talk to the subject to feel something and to add high intensity of it? Well, first of all, there's a real quick workaround that preserves if they can't feel something, it's not that they can't feel something. It's that they're feeling something that the unconscious mind is deliberately screening out. Let me give you an example from science. Some researchers were testing the effects of hypnotic, what they call positive and negative hallucination. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about positive and negative hallucination, a positive hallucination is seeing something that isn't there. Now, before you go thinking that a positive hallucination is really hard to get, I'm going to ask you a question. Answer with your first impression. What color is the flower that I'm holding? And type it in the chat. First thing that pops into your head, right? The corollary to a positive emotion is known as a negative emotion. Now, positive emotion is seeing something that isn't there, right? A negative emotion is not seeing something that is there, right? So Bernie D said, pink, right? How the hell did you know? Because your unconscious mind created an image and you gave it a color, right? Red, right? See that? Yeah, there's about a 15 to 30 second lag between when I speak and when it shows up. So awesome. So what I'm talking about now in terms of that feeling or that not feeling that we were talking about is a negative hallucination. You see, when hypnotic researchers hooked people up to machines and induced a negative hallucination. And for those of you who wonder what a negative hallucination is, if you've ever lost your keys right in front of you, right? If you've ever walked in, that's probably the best one. If you've ever lost something right in front of you, you just experienced a negative hallucination, right? Now, here's the interesting piece from a brain anatomy perspective about negative hallucinations. When people were hooked up to the brain scanners, what they discovered was that in the hypnotically induced negative hallucination, the not seeing something, the parts of the brain that were active when somebody was seeing something were still present. In other words, they were seeing it, but another part of the brain was activated that isn't normally activated, that was actually covering it up and filling in the blanks. It's kind of like that blind spot you have right here, right? Your brain is always filling in details, so it can omit details because your neurology is always predicting what's going to come next before it actually gets there. So when people are having a trauma that they can't feel, it's not that they're not feeling it. There's a part of their body that is feeling it, and there's another part of them that's covering it up. You guys follow me so far? So the way you work around that is while preserving that, because remember, there's a reason that defense mechanism is there, but you still need to access the feelings. Now, if this were a direct hypnotic intervention, I would just blow through it with bazookas and dynamite, hypnotically speaking. But in terms of the things I teach here on YouTube, if you're not a therapist or trained in regression or anything like that, here's a very simple way to access the body feeling. Just tell the person, well, that's fine. Just pretend you knew exactly where it was and point to where it would be. And they'll point. The same part of the brain that pretends is the same part of the brain that manufactures those shields and those feelings. So the moment you have the brain pretend to do something, it feels safe to generate the information because it's not in danger from its perspective. Does that make sense? If you got that, just type that in the chat because it's a good question. It's a really good one. Let's see here. Let's see. So I was looking away thinking green, yet saw pink in my mind, by the way. I was first to comment it. Cool. Excellent. Bernardini says, how can you use metaphors to influence and seduce someone? You tell stories that demonstrate higher value, that prime them to behave and think along certain lines, and then you link it all to you. That's how it works, right? Let's see here. Let's see. Nolan says, what's an effective way to bring to the surface the beliefs we don't know that we have? STEMS technique. STEMS technique and magic frame are probably the best two approaches, other than regression, to unlocking the beliefs you didn't know about. Gray room is a good way of dealing with it, but you don't always know consciously what it is you're dealing with. NLP would use the meta model. They would start asking you question after question after question that forces you to really pick apart your map of the world. It's a painful process and can often cause people to get really pissed off, which is why it's not at the top of my. It's effective. It just takes longer, and it's taxing. So it's not my favorite approach to take. Godforce says, can you explain why following your gut works? There's two divisions of our neurology that psychologists will call system 1 and system 2, or the fast system or the slow system. The fast system works on a heuristic process. In other words, it takes big chunks of data, makes a conclusion pre-consciously, and then sends it to and it acts on it, and then sends the information to your conscious mind. Because we've had so many primary experiences and we have such a deep, rich, instinctive knowledge bank, we're often able to make really good decisions very, very quickly because our neurology is able to sort that into things that have happened to us before. The problem, of course, happens is when the devil's in the details. And that's what system 2, which is a much slower system, which is the part of you that rationalizes, analyzes, and judges, takes over. And and you need system 1, because if we didn't have system 1, we never would have evolved to get system 2. But they have to work together, right? There's a process out there called M-brain technology, which involves the cognitive brain, the cardiac brain, and the gut brain. And they all have different areas of influence. And ideally, you want harmony between all 3 brains to make the best decision possible. So just Google M-brain technology. And I think you'll have a really good way to start to integrate and understand gut responses versus heart responses versus cerebral responses. Let's see. Tazia says, hold on a second. You're welcome, Nolan. Tazia says, it's true, especially if someone doesn't respond to your text, you create a whole story about why they didn't. Yes, every single thing that human beings do in terms of our thoughts is delivered has 2 components to it. It has a cause and effect component and a meaning component. So something happens that causes something else in our mind, and we assign a meaning. That structure is the underlying structure of all narratives. All stories are built off cause, effect, meaning, cause, effect, meaning, cause, effect, meaning. Everything else is window dressing. And in story, I talked about this in the webinar yesterday, story and metaphor have controlled the course of human history from the time we crawled out of the ocean. Okay, it is one of the most powerful phenomena in our lives. And if you truly want to master influence, master the art of storytelling and narrative influence. We have courses on it, of course, but there's other people doing similar thing. Well, I don't know if they're similar. I'm a little biased, but if those of you who have the courses want to talk about it on the chat or give people your experiences, you're more than welcome to do that. I don't want to give you guys a sales pitch, especially after yesterday's webinar. If you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. I talk in depth about our influence courses and our influence track. So if you want to be more influential, charismatic, things of that nature, I invite you to check that out. Let's see. Easiest way to program the subconscious mind is hypnosis, period. Not NLP, not HMR, hypnosis, right? Now, I do a very integrative approach. I bring in NLP, I bring in the hypnosis, but the bottom line, anything that's the most direct route to reprogramming the subconscious mind is hypnotically. You just go in, you dissolve, you neutralize the filters, you take out what you don't want, put in what you want, and you just reinforce the living daylights out of it. And that's the fastest way to create powerful change in the subconscious mind. Easily. Okay. Hold on. Things keep jumping here. I apologize. So Milos is asking, Milos Martinovic says, is it possible to do regression on ourselves? And if it is, how would you recommend to do it? It is very possible to do regression on yourself. It is extremely hard to do regression on yourself. Not that it's not that the steps are any different. It's that it's very, very difficult to be the driver and the passenger at the same time. And in order to guide yourself through the process, you have to literally split your consciousness. So that there's a part of you that's guiding the process and a part of you that's undergoing it, which is hard. The best form of self-regression to do is actually HMR, holographic memory resolution, holographic memory theory, as we call it in Planet David. And that's very, very powerful form of regression. That doesn't have to rely on a lot of the deeply hypnotic bells and whistles that you might get in a classical regression class. So for information on that approach, I recommend, if you're not going to take our classes, go research Brent Baum's book on holographic memory resolution called Surviving Trauma School Earth. Best place to start. Okay. Otherwise, come to our classes or reach out to one of our trainers or one of our therapists. Ron Pagulian says, are there different variations of the echo technique? Ron, can you kind of elaborate on that question a little bit? Because I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, and there's a couple of ways I could answer that. A says, David, what's the best way to rid an old belief and replace it with desired belief? Hypnosis again. There's another way to do it in NLP, where you take one belief, you look at the building blocks of that belief. You take a belief that is either is less, and you look at the structure of that, and you change the structure of the bad belief to the structure of the bullshit belief or the weak belief, and then you move it into that area. And if you do that structurally with the somatic bridging and everything else, it will dramatically weaken the negative belief. Then you take a belief that you want, and you elicit the structure. You take a belief that's super strong, and you compare them and look at how they're structurally built in terms of visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory distinctions, and you make the belief you want more of match the structural components of the super strong belief. You shrink it down, you move it into that area, you expand it, and the belief will lock in most cases. Okay, that's a very summarized way to do it. But at the end of the day, beliefs have a structure. That structure is a code that is used by your autonomic nervous system to play the experience, much like the formatting on a DVD or on a movie that you might buy is encoded in that medium. And when you change the code, you change how the movie is played, right? You can go to your video editor, load a movie into your video editor, and you can watch it as it was originally mastered. But you could also go into that video deck and you could make it black and white, right? Without changing the content. You could delete the soundtrack and add a completely different soundtrack without significantly changing the visuals, right? Each of those pieces, the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic, olfactory, the gustatory, they have smaller distinctions within them that tell the neurology that behave like computer commands in the autonomic nervous system that tell the neurology how to express that information. And when you change that code, the player doesn't care. In other words, the neurology doesn't care what DVD is in the player. All it cares about is that it's written in a code that the DVD player can understand. So if I take a belief that I want and I link it to the body feelings that I have, right? Now I'm going to ask, okay, what are the visual aspects of this? What are the auditory aspects of this? What are the smelling and the tasting and the feeling aspects of this? And I'm going to inventory that. And then I'm going to bring up a belief that I either want more of or I want less of. I'm going to do the exact same thing, and I'm going to compare them. And I'm going to look at where they're different. And if this belief is something I want more of, I'm going to make the elements of this belief match the elements of this belief. I'm going to shrink it down. I'm going to move it over to that spot, and then I'm going to expand it. And more often than not, your neurology will automatically recode that belief the way you want it. And you do the exact opposite for a belief you want to get rid of. There's a belief that's really strong, that's negative. There's a belief over here that is either very, very weak or something that is complete, that you absolutely know in your heart is complete and utter bullshit or nonsense. You do the exact same thing. You inventory the beliefs of the negative. You inventory the beliefs of the bullshit. You inventory them and compare them. You change this to match this. You shrink it down. You move it into that spot, and you expand. And actually, I would leave it small there, but you could also expand it. Okay, that's a very simple way to explain a very, if you were to going through classical and traditional NLP, a very complicated and arduous process to do. But as a hypnotist, we can just take the big swipes and get a very powerful response very, very quickly. But that's actually one of the better ways to change a belief from a structural level. The other way is to regress to cause, either through the holographic memory theory or classical regression, and change the issues at the source, and the beliefs will change spontaneously. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Thinking fast and slow, Grant Susan. Okay, a lot of good stuff in the chat here. What face reading, Dana King is asking, with face reading, what does wrinkles on the forehead mean? My daughter that is 21 has more than I do at 46. What it means is that there's a lot, be very conscious of this. A lot of the lines, like 15 to 30 is right here. So if there's a lot of lines, like 21 is right around this area right here. If there's a lot of lines down here, be very mindful of the decisions she makes in the future. I was taught the lines that go across the forehead indicate life lessons that we've completed or are in the process of. If the line only goes partway across, it means you haven't finished that lesson yet. If the line goes all the way across, it means you got something from it, right? You went through some shit, you came out on the other side, life is good. There's another aspect to face reading, which is more woo-woo, and it has a predictive aspect to it, right? So whether you want to embrace that or not is up to you. But if she's 21, and we know that 15 to 30 is here on the face for most people, and she's got wrinkles that are below the 21-year-old threshold, it would probably be a good idea for her to start unpacking those wrinkles and what's behind them, because they can generally indicate troubled waters ahead. There's some shit she's going to be going through that the encoding in your neurology and the hologram that is the human face and nervous system is predicting is heading your way. So, yeah, so that's what it means. Basically, if the lines go across, they're completed. If they don't go across, they're still in process. If they're bisecting the head at ages they haven't reached yet, it can be something that's waiting for you when you get there. Okay, so I hope that helps. Cobra Viper 11 says, I have a female friend that is 36 and has never kissed anyone or done anything sexual. She has high testosterone, and I think she is a lesbian, although she denies it. Is there any way to help her? Well, my first question is, does she want help? Does she think she has a problem, right? Just because you think somebody has a problem doesn't mean they do, right? If a person hasn't asked you directly for help, don't offer it, okay? Because they say no good deed goes unpunished. More true than not. One of my mentors in the energy healing world, a guy by the name of Bill Bankston, the guy who created image cycling, or the version I learned anyway, he actually stopped working on people because the rats he was working with were actually more grateful for the healings they got than the people he worked on, right? So be very careful about, in spite of your best intentions, many people will interpret your attempt to help them as a form of unwanted influence. And I talked about this at length on yesterday's webinar about the resistance removal formula. It doesn't matter what your intention is. If the person that you're seeking to help views your attempt at influence as interfering with their personal choice, they will fight you. Even if it's the best thing since sliced bread for them, they will fight you tooth and nail, okay? So just be aware of that. Most people will not thank you for kicking over their idols or destroying their belief systems, okay? Just understand that, okay? Nolan says, you mentioned that men that have a deep voice get more one-night stands. Why is that? I don't know. That's what the science says. I could speculate. Dominant voices tend to be more authoritative. They tend to radiate more alpha and more presence and authority. And that tends to be very attractive to most women. Okay? It signals alphaness, right? Let's see here. Ignacio Julian says, in an older person, is there a way to slow the loss of their memory? Yes. Have more fun, move a lot more, and experience more joy. Clean up your shit, because most people who are losing their memory, it's because they're not doing anything interesting or exciting. Their brains aren't engaged. They're not moving. Your brain was evolved for movement, okay? There's a particular species of I think it's a sea anemone or some variant of it. It's born, it has a brain, and it keeps moving around until it finds the place that it wants to take root. It takes root there and promptly eats its own brain, right? If you could design the worst environment for a human being to learn in, it would be one where you sit in one position all day, you look at a screen, you listen to somebody talk, and you take notes. Does this sound familiar? Okay. Human beings are kinesthetic learners. They actually have a much better spatial memory than they do any other type of memory. And so anytime you can engage that spatial memory in the learning process, as well as dynamic activity, emotional dynamism, vivid imagery, you are going to learn and retain things faster. Another way that you can begin to do it is by building new neurological connections, by engaging in things like metaphor, meditation, creative visualization. There's a process that was created by Wim Wenger not so long, about 10 or 15 years ago, called, I think it's called image streaming. If you reference Wim Wenger's book, I think it's called The Einstein Factor. Great process for generating creativity and insight. And this will help you, again, create what we call neuroplasticity. People who tend to lose memory because their brains are becoming less plastic, not more plastic, okay? And we have different kinds of intelligence, so we want to make sure that we're working in the areas where that emphasize the type of intelligence that we want to develop. Okay, so hold on a second. There's Roy. Hey, Roy, good to see you, brother. God Force, have you heard of Dolores Cannon's hypnosis works? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I heard a lot of good things about it. Do I have a simple method to remember people's words in echo technique? Yes. Remember, just repeat their words back verbatim. It's literally the easiest way to do it. Okay. It starts actually, if you really want to remember things better, practice being intensely curious about everything people say. Take on a physiology and a posture and a breathing, like you're listening to the most fascinating person on the planet. And you will automatically remember their stuff better. Use your state control to enhance your memory. Okay. Ron says, are there other ways to do the echo technique? You mean besides echoing? No. There's lots of ways to camouflage the echo technique, which is what I think you're actually asking. And there's about 6 or 7 ways to do that. I actually did a video on that last month or a month before, I think it was. I think it was a mastermind. I think, Ron, you're in our diamond or platinum mastermind, aren't you? Is that the swish technique that Tony Robbins does? No, but the swish technique utilizes the same system as the swish, as what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of swish techniques, by the way, just for the record, especially if you're not kinesthetically bridging. People can do the swish technique is where you take a picture here and it's like a picture in a picture, and this picture is what you don't want, this picture is what you do want, and you just swish them back and forth until this causes this, right? And the problem with classical NLP and the way it teaches the swish technique is that it's done primarily as a visual hallucination construct. No real lock-in to the physical body. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. The thing I've seen in terms of change work is that if the kinesthetics aren't hooked in deeply to the process, you don't get the same degree of change. And it's as simple a fix as pointing to where you feel it, reaching out and touching it. That's all it really takes. And now you've magnified by exponentially or geometrically the aspects of the neurology that are creating on-ramps to that issue and creating synergy between all the different divisions of the nervous system, right? Sometimes simple things make all the difference, right? But I've seen people run swish patterns completely devoid of any kinesthetic connections whatsoever, and they don't work. They don't work because at the end of the day, you're a slave to your kinesthetics. So if you're not creating, and ideally the swish pattern or the belief change construct or the color, the magic frame techniques, they serve as a control panel to direct the body's internal kinesthetics. And if you don't make that connection, sometimes it doesn't manifest the way you want it to, or it goes away and comes back. So I'm not interested in slow change or change that's not permanent. So I link all these things in. By the way, I'm sorry, I didn't tap the button there. There's that image streaming tech book. Okay, here. KW is asking, how can we tell if a person learned their life lesson after 30 years old, since the forehead is only until 30 years old? Does it go all the way across? If the wrinkle is not all the way across, they probably haven't finished processing that out yet. Okay. That's probably the fastest way to do it. Now, what's interesting is if you really go back and resolve those issues, those lines tend to disappear or fade significantly. It's bizarre. It's like Jedi shit. And I did not believe it when my teacher, Lillian Bridges, first told me that. And then I saw it happen. And I was like, holy shit. Right. And I get that response. Even after doing this stuff for 15, 20 years, I look at like when somebody spins something away and their shit just disappears, like it was never there. And I look at that and I go, that shouldn't work. That just shouldn't work. I know it works. I know how it works. I have a theory about why it works, and it's consistently works. But there's a part of me that came up through this whole, self-help indoctrination that change is hard, and that it's slow, and that it has to be multi-stepped and all this stuff. And then I watch somebody take something out that they've had for 20 years, spin it, goes away, it never comes back. 90-second intervention, and they're done. Boom. Right? And it creates a little bit of cognitive dissonance even after all these years. But you don't have to, the best part is you don't have to believe it, which also goes against the old adages that were taught that you have to believe you can change before you can change. No, you just have to want to change. And that sometimes is the problem, is we don't want to change bad enough, right? And the other part of that is that nobody's ever shown us how to do it. That's my belief. You can accept it or not. Christian DeLeon says, I'm trying to find an NLP or any mental technique to drastically change my results in jiu-jitsu to hyper-learn techniques and be a world champion. Okay, here's what you do. You put yourself in, first of all, you find the people who are the top performers in their field, like the absolute best jiu-jitsu guys. And if you have videos of them demonstrating, not fighting, but demonstrating technique, well, you take those videos, you turn them into clips, you put them on an endless loop. You put yourself into trance and you watch that video over and over and over again, like it's your favorite movie of all time. We all have a movie that we've seen 20, 30, 40 times, never gets old. Come on in, say hi. Hi. My little one wants to say hi. This is Sophia. Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. So you watch that movie over and over again, like it's your favorite movie of all time. Now, what will happen? Don't try to learn the technique from the video. This is the secret. You don't try to learn the technique. You watch it for entertainment value, right? And what you'll notice is after a certain number of reps, and it's different for everyone, what you'll notice is after a certain number of reps, when the guy in the video moves, your body will start to approximate those movements, right? It's weird, right? And when that starts to happen, that's a signal that you've stimulated your mirror neurons to the point where it's actually copying and imprinting what it's seeing. Now, if you go to the gym, best thing to do right after that, by the way, is take a nap. Believe it or not, take a nap. And then next time you get a chance, go to the gym or go to the dojo and practice those techniques. Be as if you were that person. And I think you will see a significant difference in your ability to perform the technique. Okay. Back in the 90s, when I was running my school in Coral Springs, Florida, my students had a nickname for me. They called me the video sensei, because fortunately for me at that time, there was a martial arts supply store. This is before Blockbuster went out of business. They went to all the martial arts supply houses and they bought all the different martial arts instructional videos that they could find. And they started acting like a martial arts Blockbuster. They would literally, I could go there and rent like 20 videos for like $1 each. and I would go home and I would create my archive, and I would find the videos that had the skill sets that because I stumbled upon this algorithm by accident. I had no idea what I was doing consciously at the time. And I would watch the video over and over and over and over again. And I would fall asleep watching it. I'd get up, I'd watch it again and again. And about that time, I started my school, and I would be primed with this energy and this template from watching these videos. And I would go into my dojo, and I would start teaching what I learned on the video. And I would be doing it just like the guys on the video. And it really cemented in the template of the person I was seeking to emulate. Now, what's important about that is that I taught my unconscious mind how to do something. I gave it a rich resource that it could copy and mirror. The second piece was expressing that template, was giving myself the opportunity to recall it and step into it. That's the secret that locks that whole process in. If you're getting those unconscious body movements or ideogrammatic movements, the information's there. It's latent. It's potential in you. Now you have to express it so that you have a way to express that art and integrate it into the rest of your system, so you have it on demand, right? And for a long time, I became really good at a lot of stuff really quick. And a part of me felt like I was cheating because I wasn't having to work as hard as some people who were training 6, 7 hours a day. Because again, the science is there. Just visualizing a technique gives you 80% of the effect of someone who trained with no mental training 8-10 hours a day. These studies have been around for decades. I just took it a step further. Okay. So you can, and by the way, I didn't just do this with martial arts. I also did this with my conversational and language hypnosis and languaging skills as well. I would watch videos and listen to audios over and over and over again until I could repeat exactly what was going to come out. I mean, verbatim. And it just created a very powerful template that I started to draw on in various contexts that allowed me to integrate that skill and express it as David rather than a carbon copy of the person. But you got to start somewhere. Now, here's the thing. Don't watch videos of yourself screwing up. Don't watch videos of people who have less skills than you. Right? You only want people who are the standard, that demonstrate the highest levels of skill. Right? So the people I modeled back then, Benny Urquidez, Paul Vunak, Danny Inosanto, who else? Remy Presas, Dwally J, George Dillman was a big influence on me. Kevin Sikor, Vladimir Vasiliev, Burton Richardson. These were my avatars. These were the people whose resources I integrated. And then I took that, there was a bunch more, but those are the ones that come off the top of my head. So John Lazaret was another great resource for me as well. But that's my technique for using your mirror neurons and developing that mirror neuron capacity, and then going into the dojo and using it to fight better or perform better. So I hope that helps you. Nolan is asking, David, have you heard of a program? Ed Wong says, with a dad like Dr. David, that little girl will conquer the world. That's what I'm afraid of. She terrifies me, because when she looks at you, you can see in her eyes, she's looking into your soul and looking for the buttons to push. But she's an amazing little kid, and I'm honored to have her as my daughter. So, so the Grand Fire expert is asking, have you ever read the book Mind Control Language Patterns by Dantalian Jones? No, but I know him. He actually used to be an affiliate for some of my programs. Yeah, he's got some good stuff. He's got some really good stuff. We actually come from the same sources. A lot of it, we have very similar roots. Let's see. Repetition, repetition, action, action, repeat. Yeah. David, have you heard of a program called the Neurophysiology of Self-Discipline? or neuropsychology. No, I haven't, but I'm going to have to add it to my ever-growing reading list now. Thank you. Hit the thumb up button. This is on fire. Excellent. AMA has asked me anything. Yes. Okay. Did I get everybody's questions? Or did we lose? Is everybody with me here? Let me just make sure that I didn't lose anybody. Okay. Nolan's asking, what 3 courses do you recommend to anyone who purchases all your content? What 3 courses? Can you re-ask that question, Joseph? Because I'm what top 3 books? Really, it depends on what your focus is. If your focus is influence and persuasion, some of the best books to start with, I think, Forbidden Keys to Persuasion by Blair Warren. I think Never Split the Difference is a great book as well by Chris Voss. Pitch Anything is good. If you're interested in love, attraction, and romance, I would look at Love Trances. I would look at Mystery Method. I would look at this one's for women. I would look at Undercover Sex Signals by Lael Lowndes. If you're looking at therapeutic stuff, I would probably go with Hypnotherapy by Dave Ellman. I would look at Holographic Memory Resolution by Brent Baum. And I would look at The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. In terms of vibrational influence, I don't have some, everything I do pulls from Hermetics. So I would start with Initiation into Hermetics by Franz Barden and just work with those. Okay. Let's see. So David, I called Stephanie today. We, Rosa, and Witzel need to talk to you ACP. You're a genius. Well, thank you for that. I just like to think. I think of myself as a guy in a vest, you know, who learned some stuff that kind of worked, right? Elaine Cassia is asking about, can you talk about trauma resolution? Ellen, my middle daughter's name, my 11-year-old's name is Cassia. So let's see here. Seth, where is the gold? No. Okay. Jeff Smith, no. Grandma. How do I apply language patterns and long descriptions without sounding weird? Easily. You know, here's the thing about language patterns is that nobody knows how to use them. Very few people know how to use them well. The challenge with language patterns is not all language patterns are created equal. There are language patterns that are directly related to such fundamental building blocks of our internal and external experience that we cannot communicate without using them. Because we cannot communicate without using them, we cannot think without using them, okay? Then there are other language patterns that are far more sexy. They work, but they take more verbal agility to deploy and use. They have to be set up better contextually. And then there's ones that are just so niche, so specialized that they're just not practical for most people. And the problem is most people don't know which language patterns are which because nobody tells you. Part of a good chunk of my career has been figuring out, you know, what are the top tier language patterns? What are the support language patterns? What are the ones that you only use in special occasions? What are the ones that you should never use or avoid, right? And that's how we've organized our CPI language systems, our killer influence programs, even though they both start with language and then go in different directions. So if you want to go deeper and deeper into powerful, effective, non-weird, confusing, creepy sounding hypnotic language, follow the CPI model, right? You'll be unstoppable and you'll never sound vague, creepy, or confusing. You'll never seem long-winded. And even when you are long-winded, people will just be going, awesome. And that's a good thing, right? So I hope that helps you. How can I read minds better? A, control your state, get rapport, be open to the things that pop up, trust the 6 dynamics of an unconscious response, and read faces. And I think you'll find that you become quite the mind reader. But that's the process that you would use, literally. Now, I'm naming phases of a process. And so it's presupposing you know what those are. If you don't know what they are, you need to go learn them, right? Or find ways to get those trainings for yourself. Brick T is asking, what do you think of TRTP healing? I don't know what that is. If you can explain it, I might be able to give you more of an opinion. Elena says, can I talk about trauma resolution? I think I have been here and there, haven't I not? What specifically, Ellen, do you want to know about trauma resolution, right? How can I help you with that? Susan says, so if you swish, you have to build a somatic bridge. Classical NLP says, no, you don't. I say, yes, you do. If you want to make sure it works, then do a somatic bridge. If you want to roll the dice, then you can leave it out. A lot of people were very successful with not using a somatic bridge. Somatic bridge is something that's actually more specific to our approach to neurolinguistics than most other people's approach. A lot of people have started to adopt it. Like I was on Clubhouse. I just started being on Clubhouse last 3 weeks. And the number of 22-year-old hypnotists on Clubhouse was shocking. What was even more shocking was how many of them credited me as where they started. Now, if I didn't feel old before I got to Clubhouse, I sure as fuck feel old now. But what was really cool about it, though, was how good they were. For 22 years, I was nowhere near that good at 22. Nowhere near as good. So to see that level of skill that early and knowing, at least being told that I had a part in it it's a very weird feeling, you know. But the one that comes up most is I feel fucking old. So I got to find a way to get the gray out of my beard. There are herbs for that, but I haven't been taking enough apparently. So sorry for the ramble, but I forget where I was going with that. KW says, I've listened to your guided self-hypnosis from the last AMA. Each time I imagine a safe place, sometimes the colors change. Yes. I'm anchoring all these colors on the top of each other. Is it correct? Yes. Now, here's a fun factoid for you. I would like you to discover this on your own, but I'm going to have to do it a little differently. I want you to think back to each and every time you did your safe color and it was different. And I want you to remember what you were wearing each time you did it and how many times the color you were wearing matched your safe color. Type it in the chat. So Nolan's saying best way to master your CPI course or any course is to watch it. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's part of the process. The other part is you got to go out and use the skills. If you're just putting more and more repetitions in, it's like putting nickels in a slot machine, but never pulling the lever, right? You've got to express those skills. You've got to do the skills. Otherwise, it's just dormant information. You're not going to build the recall pathway that's necessary. Which is, again, one of my biggest issues with people who say, well, don't worry about getting it consciously. I'm going to teach you unconsciously. When I hear people say that, the first thing that pops through my head is horse shit. Just like you need two ends of the propulsion system, you need a towards and an away from. You need two aspects to learning. You need the subconscious priming and the conscious recollection. If something enters your conscious mind without passing through the aperture of if something enters your unconscious mind without passing through the aperture of the conscious mind, you don't have a recall pathway for it. So the information goes in, but you can't get it out. And when you do express it, you don't realize you've done it. Big problem. A lot of people go in, spend a lot of money to learn a lot of really cool information. and they're told they're going to get it unconsciously when in fact the instructor just sucks, or the person is relying so heavily on unconscious installation that they forget that it has to come out to complete that process, and they don't do that. So the person comes out thinking, I got all this great information. How do I use it? I can't use it. I don't know how to use it, but it was awesome, right? If you've ever had that experience, you were probably the victim of unconscious learning, right? Hold on a second. I got a wife just came home. Sorry about that. I was trying to hang out. So anyway, let me look at what Bria says. Oh my God, I just thought about purple. I just thought purple and realized I'm wearing purple. Yep, about 51% of the time or better. The safe color, the resolution color, as we call it, is the one they're wearing. Okay. Part of you at the start of your day knows what you need on a frequency level. And that's why many times you pick the clothes you pick. Okay. Again, I usually actually point this out to the class while I'm working with somebody on color breathing to show them how often it correlates. But if you've changed colors multiple times, if you can remember what you were wearing at those times, I'm going to bet there's a high correlation between the colors you were wearing and the color you chose, as your unconscious mind chose as a safe color. Bernardini says, I somehow manifested $5,000 with the whole Wall Street bets thing. Oh, how about that? Yeah, Nolan, you have to practice or there's no point, right? Anything you get without practice is what we call in the dating and seduction world, fool's mate. You got lucky, right? You don't want luck. You want skill. You want to be able to flip a switch and have that shit roll out. The only way you're going to do it is to actually practice. That's why we have the mastermind. That's why we have the diamond level here on our YouTube channel, so that you have an opportunity to roll your sleeves up, get around a bunch of people who have shit they want to work on, and get the skill sets. Now, you know this. You've been to our live events. I don't have to tell you this. I can shorten the curve. I can show you what to do, but I can't do it for you. I can't do the reps for you. I can get close, but you gotta pony up the effort, right? That's that second payment. Let's see here. Yeah, well, if you've met my wife, you know why I was running, right? Brick T, how to get violent when you don't want, as in defending verbally or physically. There's a process we teach called the predator-prey switch. This comes easier to wood types and metal types in terms of energetics and personality than most other types. But basically, if you want to develop that switch, you have to think like a mama bear protecting her cubs, because most people, especially, and again, I'm not trying to be racist or sexist or anything like this, but most women are, especially classic, women my age, are brought up in a culture where it's not a ladylike to fight back. It's not ladylike to say no. It's not ladylike to stand up for yourself. And so when it comes to protecting themselves, they will tend to yield their boundaries. But if something threatens their child, they will go apeshit. They will become a rabid badger on Benzedrine to protect the child. And so one of the things you need to do is you need to map over that predator-prey switch to lumping yourself like the same ferocity of you as you would protect your child, right? Part of that is by practicing the body mechanics of aggression, right? I think one of my Systema teacher, Kevin Sikor, has a video called the Predator-Prey Switch. If you go to his YouTube channel, kevinsikors.com, I think is what it's called, and you look for the Predator-Prey Switch, he has a real good video, and I think he actually has an ebook on how to develop that. So that's what we want. Okay, we need to practice turning that on. If you don't practice it, it's not going to be there when you need it. Western beer reviews. David, real account, by the way. You can call me Mike. Boxers do that. They walk like, do not even try me. Yep. Mm-hmm. I have a video, actually. I think it's on YouTube where I'm kind of sort of showing that. I think it was called Weapons of Personal Self-Defense. And I'm showing the difference in the body language posture, where we're going from the body language of fear to the body language of aggression. I think I have a video on YouTube where I'm showing that to a room full of women. But Kevin is my system instructor, and he's one of the best system instructors in the world. There's a lot of good practitioners, not a lot of good instructors. And he actually focuses in on that mental side of it, which I think is really, really important, really, really useful. Okay. KW says, the first time I did the guided self-hypnosis, my brain became more clear. My gratitude to you. My gratitude back, brother. Thank you. Bernardini says, David, I really love to learn, but I really hate school. How can I change that? Or is that the school is not for me? Chances are, the school may not be a fit for you. That is absolutely a possibility. It's far more likely that you are more focused on the things you have to do for school than what the school is going to get you, right? When you think about what the result of going to that school is going to be, what it's going to do for you, and how good your life is going to be after you have it, how do you feel, right? The reason people quit things is because they stop focusing on what they want, start focusing on the things they don't want. Or, as is more practical, they start focusing on they stop focusing on what they want, and they start focusing on the tasks they need to do to get there. And that's the same thing as focusing on what you don't want, right? But the more you focus on the pleasure of having it and the desire to have it, the less onerous and the less arduous the tasks seem to be. But a lot of times when we start to lose motivation, it's because we stop focusing on the goal, what the reward is for doing those things. If any course is missing on our website, reach out to Brandon or reach out to support at nlppower.com or Stephanie at nlppower.com, and we'll try and get it resolved. By the way, I don't know if anybody, this might be short notice for people, but how many of you are interested in dating and attraction applications? Male or female, doesn't matter. Type that in when you can. I'm going to answer more questions and I'll circle back to it. Tony B says, I want to go to your influence seminar, but I have a couple questions. Ask away, Tony. I'm an open book, brother. Ethereal Vixen says, can you talk about the Bluetooth connection and why I can feel when my ex-boyfriend is about to come back around? It's so bizarre. It's because you have an energetic sexual connection that is locked in place because of your intimacy. It's very common. It's very common. Nolan says, totally random. I answered that question. Would I be willing to take a look at it? Best that you send it to Brandon or Stephanie. I have no control over that website. I just create the content that goes on it. I gave up the programming side of it back in 2017. So, how effective is sleeping with earphones on? It can be very effective, as long as it's comfortable for you. Michael Horsley says yes. Big B. Okay. Sam Rick, not you. Okay, don't know what that means. Brady says me. All right. This is short notice. It's not on our website, but if you call Stephanie at 858-282-4663, next week from February 17th to the 20th, 2021, in Las Vegas at the Orleans Hotel and Casino, we will be teaching, this is the first time I've taught this in 5 years, a 4-day co-ed attraction mastery class. This is a class that takes you from inner game to outer game to short-term relationships to long-term relationships, how to sort, approach, and capture the object of your heart's desire. Male or female does. It's a co-ed class. I've got about a 50-50 enrollment right now. I've only got a couple more. I've only got 10 or 20 more spaces left. It is not a class that I teach very often. It is, in fact, we had to take all of our attraction and seduction and sensuality products off of our website because our ad platforms wouldn't let us run ads for anything else as long as that content was there. So we had to take it off. So if anybody's interested in those applications, this is a program that we have not been advertising anywhere except within the people who come to our live events or the people who are in our private mastermind group. So only those people know about it. If you're interested, if it's something you want to learn, my whole system, my whole approach, as well as the things we've learned since then, reach out to Stephanie at 858-282-4663, and you can capture one of those last remaining spots. Okay, we're not going to be streaming it. This has to be done in person. Okay, so if you're interested, I've never taught a 4-day version of this class either. So there's going to be a lot. We're going to be going into all the things women need to know, all the things men need to know, and there's actually a no hooking up rule in the class. Like, you're allowed to practice, men and women are allowed to practice together, but they're not allowed to get to actually take it beyond practice. You have to do that out in the field. So Ed Wong says, David, any chance in the future that you might teach live classes in Florida? Yes, we're already working on it, Ed. Okay, we're already working on it. But right now, Vegas is the most cost effective. Tony B says, antidepressant, will it affect learning your stuff? No, not at all. In fact, one of the interesting things about our technologies is that it doesn't seem to matter what kind of meds you're on. This stuff works on you, which is really cool if you think about it. Samrick says, I don't want to date you. Thank God. Because, I'm open. I live in California, but I don't swing that way, brother. So, okay. Okay. Let's see here. Susan says, so much more information available. Kids coming up today are lucky. Yes. Yes, they are. They don't realize it, though, because it's always been that way. One of the biggest problems we have with the newer generations is they've never been without, like a lot of us have. And I'm not putting down millennials, and I'm not Gen Zs or Gen X or whatever generation we're on. It's just they don't have the same perspective because they've never had the challenges we had, right? So if we want to understand each other better from generation to generation, we have to be willing to try on other people's perspectives and see things from that perspective. And that's where empathy begins. Right? Okay, see. Bernardini says, when manifesting, do you recommend being specific or general? I'm specific on the what, general on the how. Right? Michael says, I feel I've missed connections twice recently, must work on recognizing. Yes, that's the calibration and sensory acuity are the two single biggest factors in making any approach to attraction and dating or relating work. If you can't calibrate whether what you're doing is moving you towards connection or away from it, you're dead before you start. So yeah, 100% agree with that. Do I have a PDF document or link that has a list of all the upcoming live events similar to the ones Yes, I do. I can upload, if people want it, I will see if I can upload it to the community tab. I'll send you the most recent version. And if you guys are interested, then you can reach out to Stephanie. Let's see. Actually, KW says, hopefully we'll offer this class again in the future. I don't know if I will. It's certainly one of the things that was part of my golden path to do. But this particular topic also causes me more problems than almost any other topic short of erotic hypnosis, which I also teach. And the reason is because this particular subject has become such a red flag for social media, for search engines, for advertising platforms, email services, you name it, that the moment they sense you're doing anything to do with attraction, dating, seduction, whatever, you automatically get flagged or lumped into the adult side of the internet. And it really is a very, it's a problem, because I'm an educator. I'm a problem solver and a troubleshooter. I teach these things because I learned how to get past these things, and I teach them so that people can have a better life and not have to struggle and suffer the way I did. Unfortunately, the powers that run the internet, and especially the big service providers, don't see it that way. They see certain keywords, they see certain types of phrasing, and they immediately lump you with the not so good guys. And so we've had to really change how we want to keep delivering that information to you, but the platforms aren't letting us do it in a way that's right. So we have to do it more by word of mouth than anything else. And I actually like that a little bit better, because this makes sure that the sociopaths, the dark triads, the predators out there, there's a little bit more vetting that they go through before they wind up in a class like that, because they've been through Identity by Design, they've been through Killer Influence, they've been through some of the other classes where I've gotten a chance to get to know them and clean up some of their shit, so that when they come to this material, as powerful as it is, they use it well. They use it under the right circumstances and for the right reasons. Now, I'm not a persuasion or attraction cop. I'm not going to pass judgment on why you want to learn this stuff. If you want to just rack up one night stands, I'm not going to judge you for that. If you want to create, if you're into couples dating, swinging, polygamy, I don't care. That's not my point. Is I just want to make sure that people are attaching the right understandings to why we do what we do. Right? This was a big problem for my life, and I spent a lot of years learning and studying to figure this stuff out. And when I did, I discovered that these applications were the archetype for every other type of social interaction and relationship that we have. And they could map directly across to sales, to therapy, to marketing, to argumentation, you name it. And that was the big epiphany for me. But I didn't start out to do that. I had a problem that I wanted to solve, and I just kept going relentlessly until I found the answers. And then, oddly enough, I discovered that a lot of people had the same problems and wanted the same answers, and it worked for them. So the short answer is I probably am not going to do this again for a very long time. So we may release the video, but it will almost certainly not be directly available on our website, because we had to pull all of our relationship products off that website in order to run ads for other stuff. It wasn't fair, it wasn't right, but that's what happened. And I'm just going to be very transparent about it. We still offer those. If you call up Stephanie and you ask her about these products, she will tell you all about them. She will show you how you can get them for yourself. We'll load them into your members area on the NLP Power website, but you won't see us advertising except by word of mouth. And this is one of the first times I've actually talked about this class at length. And we've had it on the books for almost 6 months. So let's see here. Bernard, you should come to Tulum to do a live training. Well, if enough people want us to go, then maybe. Sam, if you're married, stay loyal, bro. Well, again, those of you who are married, this is going to show you how to reinvigorate that relationship. This is a full spectrum attraction class. So as a married man since 2009, I know a little bit about that, right? Jeff Smith says, how effective is, I answered that, Jeff. It's very effective, as long as the earphones are comfortable and you're listening as you're falling asleep. Sleep learning can be problematic at times. Let's see here. Happy Thought says, David, will you cover a little bit of erotic hypnosis material for next week? I can talk about it if people want to know about it. I'm happy to demonstrate it. I'll play a few clips for you. We'll deconstruct it for you. We're doing actually a 4-day erotic hypnosis class at the end of July in Las Vegas, if people are interested. Okay, Volney says, I just paid for a diamond member but do not see confirmation. I don't know that you will see a confirmation because YouTube actually handles that part of it. What happens is Stephanie monitors all the diamond members. She goes in, she inventories the new signups for the diamond level, and then she physically adds them to the Facebook group. So there may be a little bit of a turnaround, but if you email Stephanie, let her know you signed up for the platinum, the diamond level, that'll help her facilitate that. So reach out for her directly at Stephanie@nlppower.com. Jeff Smith says, thank you. You're very welcome. Well, is it dangerous for young and immature guys to master some of the techniques you teach? Yeah. Yeah, it can be. And here's the thing. It can be as dangerous for the person learning it as it is for the person who's having these techniques done on them, right? We all make mistakes on our path to power. You'll never find where your happy medium is until you go to extremes. And that's something that's almost exclusively reserved for the young, who are strong and healthy enough to overcome it, hopefully. Hopefully people see what we do and how we do it, and they take us on as avatars and role models of how to apply this and when to apply it. But the truth is that these skills are immensely powerful. And they're like, and when you've got them, it's a lot like having a superpower that you can just whip out and get people to do what you want, feel the way you want, more often than not. And so young people getting a hold of this stuff, yeah, it can be dangerous, but you're gonna go through that anyway. You're like a kid in a candy store, right? And I see it over and over again. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, yeah, it can be. Right? Hopefully that people develop the wisdom and the maturity from making mistakes without doing too much damage or crossing boundaries they shouldn't. But that's just how it is. Okay. I'm coming up on my my mark where I have to make a hard exit, but I'm going to cherry pick some questions here. So Evolution A to Z says, hey, David, curious, what were your major teaching, scaling, expansion points, like going from local to conferences to the net? Was it just natural next steps or flow? Most of my stuff happened randomly and organically, I'll be honest with you. I'll give you the brief rundown. I do things almost exactly the reverse of what most of my peers in the industry did. Most of my peers started out as private practitioners, and then they did one of two things after that. They either started creating or holding live trainings, or they wrote a book and tried to promote the book, which they eventually would hope to parlay into a video home study course, and then maybe a high ticket coaching program. I didn't do that. In fact, I started doing live events almost immediately. I cut my teeth doing practice groups and live events, honed my skills. When I graduated from acupuncture school, I worked almost exclusively off medical referral for the first couple of years, even as I was teaching and doing those meetups. A lot of those early videos where you see me in front of those audiences without, I'm wearing jeans and stuff like that, those were free events that I taught just because I loved doing it and I loved watching people change. Right. And then I started making offers for people to come and work with me, both high ticket and low ticket. And they did. And after about 2 years of archiving tons of material that I kept telling myself I was going to turn into a course and never did, I said, well, you know what? This stuff isn't doing me any good sitting on the hard drive. I'll just upload it to YouTube and see what happens. Next thing I know, I've got 5,000 subscribers. Right. Boom. And I'm like, oh shit, people actually like this stuff, right? And I just started saying, okay, well, the universe is telling me something. Let's keep going. And I just kept doing live events, recording the content, repurposing it, doing live events, I was putting butts in chairs. Now, most of my peers, very few of them, are willing to actually try to do their own events. Now, they've been forced to do that now because of COVID, but most of my peers wait to be asked to be a guest somewhere and wonder why they never get asked, right? After a certain amount of time doing my own events, people say, would you want to be on my podcast? Or can I interview you? And I would say, yeah. But I never relied on that to build my business. I never relied on that to reach people. I figured out the problems I had that I solved. I put out a call to the people who had similar problems. I showed them in a free event, much like we're doing here, how to fix it. And I would bring people up and I would fix it and I would videotape it and put it up on YouTube. And people say, oh my God, this shit's real. Or they would say, that's bullshit. They would do something on themselves that they saw in the video and it would work. And it'd be like, oh my God, this shit's real, right? And they would find me on Facebook. They would reach out to the clinic. And by the time they actually got into to see me, they had consumed so much of our content. They had gone through so many different processes. I just say, when do you want to start? And this is how much it costs. When you want to start? And they say, here, take my credit card. Let's get this going, right? And it wasn't until about 2016 that I invested any money whatsoever in Facebook ads, right? And I only did it because the guy who rebuilt my website, brought it back from the dead, that was his biggest way to drive traffic. But we were dominating organically on YouTube and on Google for 4 or 5 years. We had so much traffic, we didn't even realize how much we had because our analytics were screwed up. And then we started running it all through the website. It was like 10,000 hits a day or a week. You know, it was ridiculous for the kind of content that we offered. So that was probably a longer explanation than you wanted, but what really kind of crystallized things for me, made it really, really concrete that there was a system to this, was when I joined Lisa Sasovich's Sassy Mastermind, Sales Authenticity and Success Program. And I invested about 20 grand in that. And it was the best 20 grand I ever invested, short of my acupuncture degree, which was 100 grand. I learned that there were systems to what we were doing that you could employ. And there was an architecture, and it really expanded my understanding. But I started out from the very beginning by doing live events and creating programs and teaching those programs. And now people are asking me to write books. And every time they ask me to write a book, if I'm going to write a book, I said, well, I got some in the planned. But every time I sit down to go to write a book, I look at the amount of time it takes to write a book, how fast I can do a video on it, and I choose the video because it's more effective and it's more efficient. But we will be doing books. We'll also probably be doing a line of self-hypnosis audios that you can purchase and listen to. But those are in the pipeline. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see here. How do you join Clubhouse? You have to get invited. So if you know somebody who's in Clubhouse, ask if they have any spare invitations and ask them to invite you. That's the only way I know how to do it. Is it possible if a person can bring you bad luck or unsuccess where almost everything goes? Yes, it's called the evil eye. And it can be fixed. Bernardini says, I'm going to manifest meeting a person. Cool. Best way to build internal energy. Qigong and getting on your golden path, right? Again, when we say internal energy, not a good enough question. Better question. Internal energy to accomplish what? What do you want to do with that internal energy? Okay. Susan never had to walk to the library and look something up. Right on, right? Most kids I know never had to get up and change the channel on their television either. They have a remote or Siri or Alexa, right? Western beer reviews. Trying to treat women as momentary while using the 3-tiered dating protocol does not work. Okay, must be attracted to and interested in some kind of long-term dynamic with them. Okay. Yogesh says, your thoughts about Kundalini activation, best way to activate Kundalini. There's a guy by the name of Glenn Morris. I should say the late Glenn Morris. He developed a process called CAP. CAP stands for Kundalini Awakening Process, where he successfully helped over 100 people activate and awaken their Kundalini safely. Okay. Best instructor I know for CAP is a gentleman named Teo Semko. He was the top instructor for Dr. Morris, who's passed on. He's kind of heading the, and there's another trainer, Santiago Dobles. He does more shamanic stuff, but he starts with CAP and then he works into psychic self-defense and things like that. So these are the two guys I'd recommend if you want to do that. Kundalini can be very intense, okay? So bricks, this is the last question. How not to worry about hurting people mentally or physically when you need to defend or draw the line and they're pushing it. First of all, if you've sent every signal, given them every chance to stop what they're doing, and they're continuing to do it, they are the aggressors. Therefore, you, as a person defending and upholding your boundaries, should feel absolutely no guilt in pushing back and reinforcing your intention, okay? We don't, women especially, and again, I don't want to generalize, but sorry, don't like to hurt people. Although they can be vicious when they're aroused, don't get me wrong. But they're taught, they're socialized not to be aggressive and to be nurturing. And so flipping that switch is very difficult. Once again, set your boundaries, know what you'll accept, what you will not. And the moment somebody crosses it, flip that predator-prey switch on. You go from prey to predator in the flip of a switch. Okay? So I hope that helps. Tony B, do you know how, I have techniques for it. I do not practice them. They are part of my library. They are part of the training systems I'm involved with. But the only OBEs I've had are spontaneous. Astral projection, lucid dreaming are two things I know of, am familiar with. I do not teach them. I have students who teach them. I've done remote viewing a lot more than I've done astral projection. So hopefully that helps. Hey, listen, I'm going to run, guys. If you had a good time, please post great stuff. If you didn't have a good time, post on somebody else's channel about what you didn't like about their stuff. I used to tell people, if you like what we have at the meetup, post to the meetup. If you didn't like what you learned at our meetup, post to somebody else's meetup, right? Please like and share our videos. Please follow us on YouTube. We're also on Instagram now. My lovely daughter, Tracy, is uploading our content onto Instagram. Please follow us on Clubhouse. I'm going to try some live events on Clubhouse that we'll announce. We have a special mailing list. For those of you who want to get on the announcement list for that, you can go to www.drdavid.club. You can sign up for our mailing list. If you want to get on our subscriber list and our hypnotic tips and influence tips bulletin board, you can go to www.nlppower.com. Sign up for our email list so you get notifications for events and things of that nature. If I did not answer your question or you have a question, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and write them in the comments section below. I will go back and I read my comments every day because everything is held in review. And if you're a troll, you get deleted and nuked. If you write a good question, I will let it through and I will actually answer that question. That's my, this is our community. Let's build it. Let's grow it. Let's share it. Let's grow together and empower one another. Remember, a rising tide lifts all boats. Be part of that ocean and be one of those boats.